Hi, it's me again, here to share another abduction experience because I've got to tell it to somebody, and it might as well be a YouTube channel that nobody ever watches. Um, this is another event that happened when my husband was stationed at Fort Campbell. I know I said Fort Caroline last time. Fort Caroline is actually a missing fort in Florida, and I don't know why I was having so much trouble remembering the name. It's really Fort Campbell, which I am currently at my house, and it is located about 2 to 3 hours from here. And my husband was stationed at Fort Campbell, or as we like to call it, Fort Crapple. I've already told you the happy story about how the guys came to my bedroom door to pick me up, and it's kind of weird, but there was a whole avalanche of what I like to think of as the thinning of the veil, where it was no longer, I think I dreamt something really cool, and it had like soldiers in it, and there was a puppy. No. No. I knew because I was, there is a medical term for people with multiple personalities, and it's called co-conscious. And it's where the consciousnesses are existing at the same time, and the leader's up front, but the other ones are kind of watching and stuff. And so I like to say that I was co-conscious because I was aware of what was going on, and I kind of knew it was me doing it, and I even felt like I was making some of the decisions, but it was still a dream state, and it could have also been someone else. There was this other event. I don't know what happened, but I had this other handler, and there was like 2 or 3 that would handle me at the same time, and I never went anywhere or did anything without being escorted by at least 2 handlers. And one of them was this young punk, and I do mean young punk. Okay? I'm going to be honest here. I am a semi-nudist. I sleep in the nude. I have tried on numerous occasions since I was a kid to sleep with clothes on, and I can't do it. My skin is too sensitive or something. I can't stand the wrinkles. As a matter of fact, I even have to really straighten out the bed sheets. My pillow can't be wrinkled. My hair has to be flipped up. I can't have a braid in my hair. I'm just that sensitive when I'm trying to go to sleep. It'll keep me up. As a matter of fact, being overweight has caused me a lot of sleeped up because I can't sleep because, you know, I'm fat and I can't lose the weight because I'm not sleeping. But he hated me. And I'm assuming it's because he always saw me at my worst. And that is yet another complaint I have about the program. And you can think of it as petty as you want, but let's face it. How embarrassing is it? They come and they get you out of bed. They don't let you get dressed. They don't let you do your hair, your makeup. They don't let you brush your teeth. They always see you at your worst. And is it any wonder that they do not see you as a clean, viable person? They see you as a piece of crap because they're always seeing you at your worst. Never mind, it's their freaking fault for not letting you clean up. I mean, my gosh, you know how hard is it to freaking let your charges go to the bathroom and clean up and get ready for work, as it were. I mean, seriously, and it's just disgusting. And it's like, and this guy, he was just so terrible to me, and it was his attitude to me that was actually causing me to bust out of the program and remember what was going on because I was so distressed. I mean, the first night that my husband was gone and he was on his way to Afghanistan is when they gave me to this little punk. And my husband has always been a gentleman to me. He gets the door for me. You know, he comforts me. There's sometimes he's a little insensitive, you know, but, you know, he's one of those that women, you can try to steal him if you like, but I trust him. And he will always get me a drink if I want a drink. And so it's this love gesture that you get used to. And the first night he was gone, this kid is coming to me masquerading as my husband. And of course, being in the thing as I was buying it. And I said, I really want a drink because we were in an area where there was drinks being served. And he said, fine, go get it yourself. And I just sat at the table distraught that my husband was refusing to get me a drink and continued to ignore me like I wasn't there, having a conversation with the other 2 men at the table as if I was just nothing, which is another point of distress because I come from a culture where you don't do that, especially not to women. You know, I know that there's a stereotype of Native Americans squashing their women and stuff, but not the way I was raised. Okay, we rule the roost, and we are treated like persons. And you know, when my husband started acting like certain people he's been, and I mean my father was started acting like certain people he's been hanging with in the past decade, he and I have kind of gotten a big rift in it because I can't stand to be around that. So that was very distressing, and it busted me out, and I remembered the event. And so other things started happening. I knew that my unit was getting ready to move on, and I actually helped with the packing, and I remember helping with the packing, and I can remember arriving, and there was one night I was quote-unquote doing like an equivalent of CQ or something, and we go in, and these guys are at a table, and we had to go in and sign our name. So I went up to the table, only it wasn't my name I signed, and I tried my best to see what my name was and who I had been assigned to be, because I know that we each have an identity that's recorded, and we're not known by the Christian name that we have out here. We're known by this other name, and I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't even have bank accounts in that other name, and if we do, I really want my money. And I stood there, and I busted out long enough. I looked the man in the face. He looked at me, and I said to him, "That's it. I have something to say." And I knew that some other people walked up to the side because they thought I was going to be trouble, because I do have a history of being trouble. I mean, I remember being trouble a lot, so I'm pretty sure, you know, I'd love to see my records. But, and I said, "I don't mind coming to work, except that I better start seeing a paycheck. I want to get paid for what I do." And the motherfucker just sat there and laughed, and he looked at me like, "Oh, really?" Like I was a piece of dirt. And, well, that distressed me. So I remembered the event. And he wasn't the same little punk, though. The little punk handler, we'll just call him the little punk, because he was a terrible handler. He was terrible. In the history of handlers, he was the worst. I mean, if you see like a circus performer, and you see them, and there's the lions, and you've got the lions trying to jump through the flames, and he cracks his whip. If that was all there was to the trainer, like the propaganda would let us believe, those lions would be always distressed. But if you pay attention to a real good animal handler or animal trainer, you'll know there's a lot of love and care and teaching and camaraderie. And I'm used to that. I'm used to getting treated like I'm worth something and talked to, you know, and maybe not on an equal basis, but certainly a lot better than this little punk who hated me. I mean, he freaking hated me. And it's like, what the hell did I do to you? Nothing. As a matter of fact, you know, it'd be better if you just left me alone, with considering my husband just left, and here you are masquerading as my husband to get me to do stuff for you. And there was another time that we were at some exercise, and I used to be able to remember the exercise better, and I don't. All I remember is I had, a lot of us, people don't talk about this, but I guess because they don't recall, but I've witnessed it enough co-consciously to remember. You have this thing where you'll actually faint and fall back asleep if they're not, you know, if there's too much going on or whatever. You just, because, you know, the REM cycles, I guess, I don't know what causes it. And I had it. And I've done it so many times, and I always took it for granted that I was dreaming. I dreamt that I'd sleep in my sleep. But I saw it happen with a little girl once, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, I had episode where I fell, and so they took me back to a little trailer, and they have these little trailers, and that's where everybody was being kept in between. And I'm laying there, and I had this robe on that barely covered me because I'm fat, and I remember laying there, and the kid was having to watch me, and he was on a bench across the way. And it was like one of those little silver round things, barely big enough for a bed and a bench, you know. And I modestly tried to cover myself more with the robe, even though I was laying there, you know, told to lay there and behave. And he said, "That's right, you cover yourself." And the hatred and the angst and his thoughts just hit me, because, you know, your senses are wide open if you're aware they've taught you to handle everything in the other side. And I felt every bit of contempt and angst and hatred and resentment and feelings of how I was a disgusting human being just hit me, and I just lay there because I was supposed to. But unfortunately, it was just, well, maybe fortunately, it was distressing, so I remembered. There was another time, there was another exercise during that year, that we were, you know, I don't know where it was, but it was kind of interesting how after that I found out about the Harp Center, and the photos I found of the Harp Center matched the grounds that we were having the exercise on. And in the exercise, we were doing a post-apocalyptic scenario, which I've done a lot, and if I've done it a lot, then others out there have done them a lot. And in this scenario, I was part of the ruling class, only I wasn't like the ruler, which, you know, normally I'm like the ruler for whatever reason, but I was like second or third in command, and I was acting as liaison with the non-rulers trying to keep peace. And then the thing I remember the most is I went back and we had to do this weird sun ceremony thing around the leader. We were having to walk in circles, but I had broke out of programming and fell co-conscious. And so I knew that there were doctors in robes with clipboards in the hallway, that the equipment in the hallway was really cardboard boxes made up to fool us. The room was just a big empty room with a weird round window. And there was a little girl in there, and I don't know what she was made to think, but she had another fainting spell. And I remember watching the doctors run in really quick and scoop her up. You know, I'm a mother. I'm going to follow the kid to see if the kid's okay. It was instinctive. I got to the door as they were laying her down, and they laid her down in a pile of peanuts, and they put headphones on her head. And I watched this and totally soaked up the information. And this female doctor with blonde hair, I bet you thought they were all men. This female doctor with blonde hair came up to me and she said, "Is everything all right?" And I can't remember what I said, but I realized that if she knew I was co-conscious and aware, I was in trouble. So I don't remember what I said, but it was to cover my butt. And then I went and I was like Eddie Soldier or something. And I went back to the ceremony and went around. And I remember having to like look at the others and how they were walking with their hands clasped behind their backs, like Hitler, Nazi style, sidestepping around this leader as it was like 9 of us, so I guess we were doing like the solar system or something crazy. I don't know. I mean, that's an assumption. I don't know what it was. And I had to like watch them like you're in a dance. But yes, so I can tell you that we do have fainting spells. And apparently whenever someone goes out, they get the headphones put on their head. Now, the neat thing about that little girl what's really cool, is I was at this job where I did a lot of driving, and I was driving through the local backwoods town, a little place called New Frankfort. And I stopped for gas. And that little girl was at the gas station. She saw me. I saw her. I was going, "That's that little girl." She jumps in the car because she recognized me. And she said, "Hi!" I hated to do it. I really hated to do it, but her family's right there. And as much as I wanted to talk to her, I couldn't. So I said, "Honey, you don't know me." And it broke my heart to do that to that little girl. She jumped out right away without a word and got back to her family. But that was like, oh, wow. But yes, that was quite an event. Time at Fort Campbell was rather chaotic. The little bit I do remember, the quote-unquote missions I was on were like fact-finding missions. They took me to an airport once, and they had me there, and the punk told me that he was my husband and that he was deploying and he was going off to get me upset, because when I'm upset is when I'm at my peak. And then this guy walked through, and 1 minute I'm getting upset at my husband, even though I knew he wasn't my husband. So first off, I'm agitated because I know the man's lying to me, but I'm under the quote-unquote the spell, so I'm going through the event and acting it out even though I knew it. And I knew he wanted me to be more upset than I already was, but I knew he was lying to me. I knew he wasn't my husband, and my husband was already deployed. So that moment was long gone. But just about that moment, as I'm talking to him and trying to fake upset and appease this jerk, my target walked through. And it was like, boom, I zero in. It was like, immediately turned on, and I followed him. And as he walked out of my sight, my psychic senses followed him. And then they asked me, and I said, "All right, here's where he's going." And they took me to the side, and there was a big map, and I showed them where he was going. And I was like, "He's going to Africa, and from Africa he's going to land here, and then he's going to go to this little village here." And I have no idea to this day who this man was. All I knew is he was somehow connected to the Afghanistan situation. And I remember being very confused. If he's connected to that situation, then why is he going to Africa? Well, that was pretty interesting. And, you know, and then there's all the stuff I told my husband that I've already mentioned that I really don't want to cover because, yeah, I shouldn't cover that. So that was my adventures with Fort Campbell. The jerk, my situation with the jerk ended with, there's this exercise that I have done ever so often, and it would be really cool to talk to others to find out if others have done it. But because there are repeat scenarios we do, and they're all training exercises. And in this one, there is like a rock quarry. Now, the first time I went to the rock quarry that year, they told me that it was a schoolhouse. And it was me and this guy that was a MILAB researcher that I was very fond of him, and he was there. And we were told to write the word cat on the board. And the experiment was to see if we could read and write while in this state. And I had a piece of chalk. And so I wrote cat, but I misspelt it because my alters can't spell very well. So instead of saying C-A-T, I wrote K-A-T. My friend didn't write a thing. And so then to further the exercise and to test people's ties, I guess, I don't know, relationships, I'm not sure why they still do this experiment. They know the result, but they still do the same experiments over and over and over again. It's been 2, 3 generations of the same experiment, so that you've got to wonder if they're just not checking off while doing these experiments, because surely they aren't that dumb to have to keep doing the same things over and over again, knowing the result. But it was, okay, let's see, you know, how they relate. It is, you are the bad guy, he said to me, you have to die. So he went and got into a crane, he was going to kill me. And from there, it kind of got weird, I get, you know, and my friend took a crane and attacked the handler, which, you know, it didn't really happen. I could tell it didn't really happen because it got really surreal, so much as I was probably getting told it was happening because he was, quote unquote, doing it, and killed the handler for threatening my life, which was pretty cool. Yeah, got a lot of friends like that. But, okay, so, you know, nobody really died. But the thing is, that one I brought home a souvenir. Brought home my chalk. And I remember the next day remembering this as I was going through my room, cleaning my room and doing the daily stuff. I found my chalk on the dresser. And I was like, this is my chalk. Only it wasn't chalk. It was a piece of charcoal. It was a bit burnt piece of wood that just happened to be soft enough that it could write like chalk. I even tested it on the wall to make sure it would write. But it was there. And so I took it with me to the only hypnotherapist I've ever made it to. And that scenario was a nightmare. I was scared from the first moment I got in there because he walked like a military man. It turned out he was, quote unquote, ex-military. I gave him my charcoal as evidence that I was telling the truth. He did this thing where he couldn't get me under the traditional way, so he got me under the other way. And there's this defense that we Makultra, well, at least I have. I don't know if the others have it. I've never heard nobody talk about it, but I know it's there because I've seen scenarios where others have had it awaken. And it's called the Babbler. And it is a run-on, repeat speech program where you'll say crazy things and it completely discredits you. And, you know, it says such famous phrases as, I know you're one of us. You're one of us, aren't you? Well, that's what I did. It was very embarrassing to be out of control, to not be able to stop the talking, to listen to the babbler go on and on and on this repeat, broken record, nonsense, doesn't make sense stuff. And yet somehow it makes sense because that's what she's thinking. And then to come out of it and he says, well, you're just, you know, you're nothing. There's nothing serious about what's going on. You know, it's not real. Never mind, I handed him the physical evidence, and I have a taser scar and other stuff, but okay, fine. So it would be probably a cold day in hell before I could bring myself to another hypnotherapist again, because that was it was kind of like getting raped. I wouldn't say it was traumatic as rape. Understand, I'm not saying it's not as bad as rape, because for all you oversensitive people out there that don't understand what a metaphor is, it was very much, I'm still not over it. It's years later, and I'm still not over this terrible, humiliating, terrifying event that happened when I paid a lot of money to go to someone that was supposed to try to help me and believe me. So those are pretty much, oh, I gotta tell you, so the end with the jerk. Okay, the second time I went to the quarry was the yearly exercise. I don't know why they bother with this exercise. I don't know what the point is. I'm only just beginning to understand what the point of some of the exercises when I was a kid were for. But you go there, and it's a post-apocalyptic scenario, and you're supposed to be getting supplies and getting to your house, which is in the middle of a blast zone. And it's a little bitty house, and they might drop a bomb on it while you're in there. They may not. It just depends. The scenarios play out according to what role players do and how everything's play out. So I left my daughter in the house and told her to be safe and took a brave trip into the apocalyptic world to get supplies. I found, and the handler was with me, and he was doing his best to get me back in control. But it had been nearly a year of distressing thoughts, angst, hatred, you name it, in my direction. Okay, what in the world is up with my camera? So it was really hard to relate to this man, and I could just kind of sense that he was being evaluated. And so I'm in the general store getting supplies, and the other handlers were there, and I knew this other handler. I recognized him right on as another handler, and he was dressed as a civilian, and the punk threatened my family. He threatened my family if I wouldn't behave. You know, I have been under threat of my family my whole life. I have had people discriminate against me. I've got ex-in-laws that go around telling people how unstable I am and claim credit for virtues I did for the family and things I did without for. They claim that they did it, and I don't even get a thank you. I've got, I barely saw child support, you name it, okay, and have always been nice, and yet somehow I'm the bad guy. I have been raped, sexually abused, and was the star witness in that case, all sorts of stuff. And, I had to send my son away to live somewhere else because this horrible woman in New Jersey couldn't prove abuse because there was none, so she tried to throw my son into an insane asylum instead, because if you can't take the child away one way, you'll do it another. To hell with whether you really, when it gets to the, it got to the point where they were the system was abusing my child, not me. And so you're going to come to me and threaten my family. Well, that's not going to work, because I've learned that if you're the kind to threaten my family, it doesn't matter how well I behave, you're going to hurt them anyway. So all you're really going to do is put me in an offensive position where I've got to start thinking how I can put you down because you're a threat to the family. And, a good parent, which I know I was, will stand up for the family. So, whatever. So he threatened me again, trying to get me in control. And he had done it several times through the year, that kind of behavior. And I don't know where he got off leaning on such a nasty thing. I guess other people are cowed. And I can see it if, like, they had busted into my house and put a gun to my daughter's forehead in the waking world and said, we're going to shoot her if you don't behave. I can see behaving then. But this was the other scenario with other personalities, and you're detached, you don't have quite the same emotions, and you're going to threaten someone. That's not a sure thing. And if it doesn't work the first 24 times, why in the world are you doing it again when you're being evaluated? What kind of stupid, insane, stupid retard are you? Who picked you to be in the program? So I turned right around on my heels, literally turned around on my heels, and I turned to the other handler, and I started reporting on his behavior. I was like, he's just a terrible handler. He's a terrible handler. Let me tell you how he treats me. And I listed everything out. I never saw the punk again. I was given to other people, and things changed. I never saw that punk again. I hope he's cleaning floors with a toothbrush. I hope they demoted him to janitor. I hope they put him in the program and giving him a taste of what it's like on the other side that he felt was so worth abusing. I hope that others get to see him at his worst and think that he is a piece of crap and his teeth rot because of the lack of rest and malnutrition and everything. Serve him right. And yeah, I know I'm a little bitter, but treat me that way for a year whenever I'm serving my country, you know. And this is not defending the program before any of you get upset and give me any thumbs down, because I saw that thumbs down. Okay, you out there, saw that thumbs down. It's like, what in the world did I do to you for you to give me a thumbs down? The only reason why you gave me a thumbs down is because you don't remember nothing and you jealous, okay? You know, I ain't defending the program because I'm still at a place where I'm still gathering information. So I neither defend it and I neither go against it. Now, there's a lot I disagree with, and so far the negative does kind of outstack the positive. And if I were forced to choose sides, I'd probably choose the people who want to be free, you know. But I'm really slow to make up my mind about stuff. Mind you, when I do make up my mind, it gets pretty firm and it's really hard to change my mind, which is why I'm so careful with my decisions. And it's just really important that you be careful with your decisions. So that is my Fort Campbell rundown. I don't remember a lot of it at this time. It's like sun's coming up and I haven't slept since yesterday, and I have to stay up longer. So I'll probably record another one in just a minute, talking about some other cool things.